Hi everyone, I'm really excited about these 3 days of prayer and fasting, and we just wanted to prepare a few videos for you just to stir your faith, to equip you, to help us understand what fasting is, why we're doing it, what the point of the whole thing is anyway. And so this is part one, just as an introduction, and I just want to read a few verses from Acts chapter 13. And it says, "Now there were in the church at Antioch prophets and teachers, Barnabas, Simeon, who was called Niger, Lucius of Cyrene, Manaen, a lifelong friend of Herod the Tetrarch, and Saul. While they were worshipping the Lord and fasting, the Holy Spirit said, 'Set apart for me Barnabas and Saul for the work to which I have called them.' Then after fasting and praying, they laid their hands on them and sent them off." And the church in Antioch was one of the most significant churches of the day. In fact, the whole of the fact that the gospel came to us really is because of what happened in the church in Antioch and this moment. And it was born out of a time of worshipping and prayer and fasting. And you get the impression in the narrative, you notice that prayer and fasting is mentioned twice. So they were praying and worshipping and fasting. Then the Holy Spirit spoke, and then they prayed and fasted and set apart Saul and Barnabas. The context of God speaking was prayer and fasting. So we're not fasting because we're trying to get God to do something for us. We're not primarily fasting because we want an answer to prayer. We're not primarily fasting because of something that has happened. Those are all legitimate, and we might look at some of those. We're fasting and praying because we want to create an environment where we want God to show up, where we want God to speak. This whole series called I Saw the Lord has been about having a vision of Jesus. We want to be a church that first and foremost, before anything else, gives ourselves to the Lord. And prayer and fasting is like creating an atmosphere of hunger. Just like our bodies have physical hunger in fasting, so we're creating a spiritual hunger for the presence of Jesus, for Jesus to speak, Jesus to show up, Jesus to lead us, Jesus to move. And it's in that context that God speaks. And then after he speaks, we then respond to what he says by setting things apart. And who knows what God will say to us? I tell you what, if he says nothing, it will be worth us setting apart the time to give ourselves to God and train ourselves to be a church that does that. So please set aside the time. Come in the mornings on Zoom. Come in the evenings at St. Luke's at 7:30. Let's give ourselves to God for these 3 days. Fast in the way that suits you. We'll do some videos on that. And let's give ourselves to him together, because there is no end to what he will do with a church that presents itself before him. So we'd love to see you there.